Welcome, everyone, to episode 93 of the Gully Blanchard podcast. My name is Ryan, coming to you from the continent of Northern California. This was originally a one-person podcast. It wasn't very good, so I decided to bring in two of my best friends. We had a lot of fun for a long time. Like anything else, though, getting three grown men in their mid-30s in the same room proved to be a little bit difficult once a week. So I went back to doing a one-man show where I get to talk to interesting people that I interact with social media about stuff, whether it be sports, pro wrestling, social issues, what have you. This episode is going to be no different, but I want to let you guys know where you can find all the podcast episodes. All the episodes are available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all by searching Gully Blanchard. You can follow me on Twitter at Gully Blanchard, which is GULLYBLANCHARD. You can also check out my wrestling writing at nocoastbias.com. Periodically, I'll do a little bit of writing about my hometown Sacramento Kings. Feels good to write about a fun basketball team for the first time in almost 2 decades. So yeah, we're getting to do that. That's it at royalpain.com. Big shout out to Rafa and Jonathan, who do a great job holding that site down as well. This episode is going to be a little bit of a break from what we normally do. The past couple episodes have been real wrestling centric. This one's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk to someone who I grew up being a big fan of. Guy's got a lot of good, interesting sports takes. He's got a new album out as well. We want to get into that, but want to talk a lot about sports here. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my guest. You may know him from Little Brother. He has done a lot of good, great music over the past decades or so. Big Pooh, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. So I know you just put out the album RPM. Where can people find it? Where can people follow you on social media? What's going on in your world right now?
RPM, new project, produced entirely by two-time Grammy Award-winning Focus. You can get it on any digital streaming platform, man. Apple, Spotify, Google, Rhapsody Music, YouTube, whatever. Wherever you listen to music, Amazon, you can get the new record, RPM. You can follow me on social media at Rapper Big Pooh for Twitter and Instagram. Everything spelled correctly. RAPPERPOOH for Pooh. I forgot the big part. BIGPOOH. But everything spelled correctly. Twitter and Instagram. And then on Facebook, my fan page is Rapper Big Pooh and the number 1. So that's where I'm at. Come holler at me.
All right. So I know we are fans of opposite teams. I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. I know you're a fan of Washington. That game is later today. What are some of your favorite memories about being a fan of that rivalry or just being a Washington fan in general?
I mean, I've been a Washington fan since I was small. I grew up in the D.C. area, so that's what I knew. Even though I've been in North Carolina the past 20 years, I've never dropped my allegiance to my hometown team. And, you know, I grew up with constant winning. As I've become an adult, it's been constant dysfunction and losing. But I'm still a fan. As far as the rivalry with the Eagles, man, I remember, you know, the game that sticks out to me the most is I remember the body bag game. That's what they called it. That's when we ended up, I think Brian Mitchell ended up he was the kick return specialist. He ended up having to play quarterback. Like, we lost all our quarterbacks that game. That's when teams used to carry 3. We were just losing people left and right during that game. And it was kind of familiar. The last time we played the Eagles, we lost the quarterback. And I think we lost some other players. So, definitely has always been a bitter rivalry with any team in NFC East, but I definitely remember Philly vividly because of that body bag game. And of course, the Philly fans are like the best, worst fans in sports, period. So yeah, they boo Santa Claus and Beyonce. Like,
not only that, they also and I'm a big Eagles fan, and I'm one of the. It's tough because like anytime I tell somebody I'm an Eagles fan, they always lump me in that same group. And like, I remember watching the pre-show when they played Minnesota last year in the playoffs, and you saw like the fans throwing stuff at Vikings fans as they were walking in the stadium. That kind of stuff, like, it's not cool to me. Like, just don't throw stuff at other people. Like, it can't be that hard. But I think you have like a big contingent of the fan base that is about, you know, acting crazy, and then you have another fan base that like wants to just be there by association. So you're right. It's the best worst fan base, and it's a tough fan base to love. I understand why a lot of people hear you're an Eagles fan and they kind of cringe inside.
Yeah, I mean, y'all finally got a championship. You know, I had a parade in Philadelphia after who know how many years. I mean, never in football, but just in general in all the pro sports teams. So hopefully that tempered some of the manic fandom for a little while.
Absolutely, man. So I know, you know, growing up, I was always a huge fan of Sean Taylor. He's probably my favorite player from that franchise I could ever remember. But who are some of your more frustrating Eagle fans? Because for me, Sean Taylor was great, but he always seemed to play good against the Eagles as he did against everybody. But did you have anyone on the Eagles where those games would come up and you're like, oh, I don't want to see this guy, or I don't want to play this guy?
Man, I think it was during the run, Donovan McNabb and Andy Reid, where they won like 5 straight NFC East titles. It was something crazy like that.
Mm-hmm.
They went on an unbelievable string, and it was just like nobody could beat them in the NFC East. And I think during those times when they were clicking, they never could win the big game. Only got there once, but like they ran the NFC East for a long stretch of time, and that was probably one of them. I hated. I mean, I still don't like the Eagles, but I hated the Eagles during the Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb era.
Yeah, that was a fun era. It was always difficult to watch because those NFC title games, every year it always seemed like it'd just be something odd, whether it be like the Rondé Barber pick 6 or like Jake Delhomme didn't play and they still lost to the Panthers one year. It was always something odd that always kept them out of winning the big game. But that was for me, it was a fun time, but I could understand being on the other side of that coin. That was a rivalry that was tough. But being a fan of Washington, obviously, you know, Alex Smith got hurt. We don't know if he's coming back. McCoy got hurt. Sanchez is Sanchez. Now you have Josh Johnson. But going into next year, what are some of your hopes for what they put on the table next year at the quarterback spot?
Next year, I mean, a lot is going to hinge on Alex Smith and his return. But I haven't, you know, I'm not mad at Josh Johnson. I know he ain't the guy that's going to lead you to the promised land, but I'm not mad at him. It also makes you wonder, you know, that could have been, since they supposedly discussed Kaepernick, like that's pretty much the Kaepernick game as how Josh Johnson plays. So that leaves that open. But you know, for me, I know, just being realistic, I think that they should be looking at like a Teddy Bridgewater or something like that. He's still only like 25. He's 2 years removed from that gruesome knee injury. He actually is a throwing quarterback, not a running quarterback. So I think somebody like that they should be looking at. And if they can't nab, you know, a Teddy Bridgewater or somebody young that they can still has upside, that it's time to go. It's time to go looking in the draft, man. They've been avoiding it for a while, but it's time to find somebody. At least find somebody you can develop.
Yeah, I know there are going to be a couple quarterbacks that come out this year. None of the names are really going to blow your mind. Like I'm hearing stuff like Flacco might become available. I know Bridgewater's on a short deal in New Orleans, and as well as Tannehill's another one that might become available. So it always seems like those 3 guys are going to be. There's going to be a lot of open quarterback spots, whether it be, you know, Washington or Jacksonville or who else. So it's interesting to see where Washington ends up going with that position next year.
Yeah, they can keep Tannehill. I don't care where he goes. Just don't come to Washington. I can deal with Joe Flacco for a season. You know, just somebody it's definitely whoever they bring in, unless it's like a Bridgewater who's still young. It's definitely just going to be a placeholder, and that's only if Alex Smith can't continue his career. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what they do. I think the defense is, you know, they got some work to do in the secondary, but they're building a good defense. They just have to get them to play together, and I think they need new training staff, because you can't keep topping how many people you put on IR every year. This year is the most they've ever. It's a record for how many they put on IR. It's like 25 players on IR or something crazy like that. Went through 5 offensive guards. So it's one of them things where they got to figure the training staff situation out. They got to stabilize the offensive line. They got to find a number 1 receiver. That's very key. And then, of course, I mean, the quarterback, I think they're going to be able to figure that out either with a short-term plug in, for now, because this isn't the draft for quarterback, supposedly. I mean, there's always a diamond in the rough that could be found, but this isn't the quarterback draft. So I think they can find a way to plug that position, but they have other things they need to do, as well as they need to make some changes on their on the coaching staff. If the head coach isn't going to change, they still need to make some changes there. So a lot of things they need to do. They're gonna have a long off season to do it. So it gets started tomorrow for them.
Absolutely. Now I know, like you said about a number 1 receiver, it always seems like they're trying out, different guys for that role, whether it be, Josh Doxson or whether it be Terrell Pryor. It just doesn't seem like they've been able to hit on a solid, number 1 game-breaking receiver for quite some time. The last one that I could really think of was probably Deshaun Jackson, who that one was tough for me because the way he left Philly was tough just because of the whole Chip Kelly thing and just to see him ball out seemingly every time Philadelphia played Washington. But it does seem like there is a need for that game-breaking threat to be on either side of the football for Washington.
Yeah, that definitely. I mean, Deshaun Jackson probably was the last, breakout receiver that we had. But I mean, we're in desperate need of a number 1. Like we need to find something, or at least find some consistency with the receivers we have. And that was a problem this year as well. We didn't have any consistency with the receivers. We didn't have any consistency with the tight end position. Didn't have any consistency with the quarterback position. So the offense was just in shambles from day one. And I think a big part of that as well is Jay Gruden doesn't need to be calling plays if he's going to be the head coach. Like I'm not in big favor of head coaches calling the plays on offense, but he really can't handle it. Like the offense is a whole different offense from when Sean McVay was calling it to when Jay Gruden ended up taking over. And then when Jay Gruden takes over, because you're wrapped up in that, I think it also minimizes the attention you can pay to other aspects of the game. So it takes a very, 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 very special mind to be able to multitask in that nature. And I think they need to find a young, bright offensive coordinator to take over that role. And of course, Jay have input because that's his background, but I think that'll help the offense as well.
So I know neither one of our teams look like they're headed for the playoffs. I know Philly needs to win and they need some help. Washington was there for a little bit, then it kind of petered out towards the end. But looking forward to the NFL playoffs, are there any teams you're really excited to see how they perform in the tournament this year? I know Kansas City is a pretty popular one, but are there any teams that are appointment viewing for you to watch this playoffs?
No, not one team in particular. I'm actually just excited that this is probably the first year in a while where you have no idea who's going to end up in the Super Bowl. Like, it's wide open. Every team has shown major flaws, whether that's the Rams, the Chiefs, the Patriots. Then you have some that's scrapping to get in, like the Steelers. And I think the Saints, they've been sputtering since they got trounced by Dallas a few weeks back. So I just think this is the first time in a few years where it's a wide open race. And I'm, especially since my team isn't in it, I'm just excited to see, what most the casual fan want to see at this point. I just want to see good football when it comes to the playoffs. So as long as I can get good football, I don't have a dog in the race. So I'm not tripping.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think this one thing we might be able to agree on. I'm cool with any team winning as long as it's not Dallas.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always rooting for whoever Dallas is playing. I want Dallas to go out in the first round.
I do too.
Yeah. Other than that, I really don't care who wins. Like you said, as long as it's not Dallas, I don't care who wins. It doesn't make me no difference. Usually,
like the way I kind of look at it is once Philly kind of gets out of it, as long as there's no one else from the NFC East, and then I could usually find a story in either team that I like. Like if it's New Orleans, it'd be real cool to see like Teddy Bridgewater and Kamara and Ingram get a ring. If it's the Rams, like it'd be real cool for me to get to see like Marcus Peters or Todd Gurley get a ring. So I could usually find a story as long as it's not anyone from the NFC East. I can get down with the winner.
Yeah, as long as it's not anybody from. I mean, even last year, the crazy thing is, I didn't mind Philly winning because I just got to the point I hate seeing the Patriots win. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, if it's Philly, it's Philly. Like and it was a good game. So that's the other key for me as well. I mean, with the Cowboys, I just detest them to the point I don't want them winning at all.
Yeah.
But with anybody else, as long as it's a good game, man, I think the team to watch, as I think about it now, I think the team to watch is probably going to be the Chargers.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
I think they might be the most complete team out of all the teams. They just so happen to play in the same division with the Chiefs, so they might end up with fifth seed by default with the second best record in the AFC, which is crazy. But I think they're probably if they don't get it done this year, I don't see them ever getting it done. So I definitely will be looking to see what the Chargers do.
Yeah, that's a team with the Chargers that I think can do things that I think they can. They've shown they can score with Kansas City, and they've also shown they have a defense and a secondary that can stop just about any team in the AFC, which I think is going to be key. Because to be honest, like no matter where they finish, they're not really going to get a home field advantage with playing in that stadium. So any game they play is essentially going to be a road game, and I think them showing that they've been able to go into Arrowhead and play, from behind and be able to make up that deficit against the Chiefs in the fourth quarter is going to bode well for them come the playoff time when they're probably going to be in a spot to where they may either need to come back or they're going to need to score with a certain team. And I think that's something that Phillip Rivers has always been able to do really well, is score with teams.
Oh yeah, most definitely. They can score, they can defend, and they just, like I said, they just have a complete team. As long as they have some healthy running backs, I think they're definitely going to be a team that people not really going to want to face starting next week, Wild Card Saturday.
Mm-hmm. So I want to transition over to the NBA a little bit. I know, you being a fan of Washington sports, you've got the Wizards. John Wall is now probably out for the year with heel surgery. What happened to that team? Like I admit I don't follow them as in depth as most, just being across the other side of the country. But as a fan of that team, what is going on over there in Washington in your eyes?
It starts up top.
Okay.
Like this is an organizational failure. I don't know how or why Ernie Grunfeld is still president of basketball ops 15 years in. The only executive that's been in that position, held that position, I think it's him, Pat Riley, and R.C. Buford from San Antonio, the longest tenured presidents, GMs, whatever. And he's the only one of the three that hasn't won 50 games or a championship. And I don't know how he stays there. Like he's the band. I call him Mr. Band-Aid. Like he causes the problem, and then he figure out a way to put a Band-Aid on it. This is going to be his second era of Wizards basketball. He the first one was the Gilbert Arenas, Antoine Jameson, Caron Butler. He couldn't get it done there. Then John Wall came in 2010. And now you've had this core of John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Otto Porter in a rotating cast of, extras, and they couldn't get it done. They topped out a couple years ago in the second round. So it's like, how many more chances does this guy get? So I think it starts there, and then it works its way down. And as far as on the court, like I want to see a blow up of the team. I think they've topped out because of the moves that the front office has made. They kind of put themselves into a box or back themselves into a corner. But I don't want that front office being the one making the decisions on the blow up. Like that's the conundrum, my man. It's like I want to see a blow up, but I don't want Ernie Grunfeld in charge of saying blow up. So it leaves me in a weird place. And I think the best thing that could have happened for a fan of the Wizards is for John Wall to have to go sit down and get the surgery. Obviously, I don't wish, injury on any player, and this has been something that's been bothering him for a while. So essentially, he should have probably went and got this surgery.
Mm-hmm.
He shouldn't even started the season because he's never been like the crazy thing is John Wall has never been a player that has been that out of shape. But it was obvious when the season started like he was out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, he's never been a play like that's not something you have to worry about with him what's going on. So I knew it was something. So between him having his first kid, the injury, them not starting well, it just things snowballed. And so with him being out, I think they need to figure out now, like, okay, it's time to start moving in a new direction. We have to figure out a way to do a soft rebuild or something and get some salary off the books. And I think that they overpaid for Otto Porter, number one, even though I like Otto Porter. I was a fan of his coming out of Georgetown, or at Georgetown and coming out of Georgetown, but he's making $27 million or something like that. That's just too much money for what he does.
Mm-hmm.
They overpaid for him. They obviously overpaid for Ian Mahimi in the year of the uncapped summer of basketball. So he's making like $16 million. So they've overpaid for players. And now they're trying to move things around and trying to just be good, like mediocre or average or whatever. And I think they need to figure out a way to start getting some salary off the books. And the only keeper on that team for me is Bill.
I was going to ask you with the injury to Wall, and again, I don't wish injuries. And I think we're in the same boat. We don't want to see anyone get injured or have to sit down for a while. But do you think? Because for me, as an outsider, as a casual fan of the team, it always felt like there was kind of an underlying. I don't want to say tension, but it always kind of felt like there was like an underlying struggle to see whose team it was. Is it John Wall's team? Is it Bradley Beal's team? Do you think with Wall being out for the year, this is sort of Bradley Beal's audition to say, okay, either I'm going to be the man moving forward if we do this rebuild, or if it's going to have to be John Wall and I'm going to have to be shipped out? Like, do you think that that's part of this blow up that you're talking about to determine which one of the two they're really going to hitch everything to for the next couple of years?
I don't think so, because, I mean, any smart person would look at it and say Bradley Beal is the person you hitch everything to. Bradley Beal is 3 years younger than John Wall. Bradley Beal has a team-friendlier contract for the next 2 seasons as opposed to John Wall, who's about to go into Supermax territory. So, and Bradley Beal has the skill set that ages well as opposed to John Wall. So, I don't think it's one of those things. I once again, starts from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
I read reports where when Paul Pierce left, one of the reasons why he left and when he left was people in the front office tried to tell Scott Brooks, the current coach, that team needed a veteran leader. And Scott Brooks' thing was, I'm going to make John Wall and Bradley Beal the leaders of this team. And they said, trust me, they need a veteran in that locker room, a well-respected veteran with something they can still give on the court
Mm-hmm.
that can handle the locker room. And Scott Brooks ignored what people in the front office told him, and now you see what you have. And I think that's the thing with Wall and Beal. They games work on paper perfectly together. They have the perfect complementary games, but because they're probably battling over that leadership position, it causes friction. And I think a solid veteran, like when Paul Pierce was there, when Trevor Ariza was there the first time, it kind of helped because those were the leaders in the locker room, not Wall or Beal. And I think that's what they've been missing. They needed that respected veteran. I think Trevor Ariza just came too late.
Okay.
But they needed that respected veteran in the locker room who still had something to give on the court, but could also control the locker room. And that respected veteran be the leader and not either one of them. Because your best player doesn't necessarily have to be the leader on your team. You can see it now in Golden State where, they were talking about once they said David West was the veteran leader in that locker room. And he kept a lot of things in check.
Mm-hmm.
David West is no longer there. Now you're seeing this Warriors team look like, even though their record is still decent, they still look like a shadow of themselves. So I think people underestimate that respected veteran voice in the locker room, and people just automatically assume that the best players are supposed to be your leaders when that's not the case. And that's something that Washington has been missing, especially for Wall and Beal. Because once it got taken away and they were forced to be the leaders, that's when their games really started not meshing on the court. I don't care what anybody say about their friction or whatever. When they had Paul Pierce and Trevor Ariza the first time, you didn't hear nothing about it. It wasn't until Paul Pierce left that you started hearing about all this. They don't like each other. You didn't hear about it until then.
So you think Paul Pierce was someone who sort of kept that together, and them not having that now has been sort of a challenge for them this year and moving in the past couple of years?
Definitely, because Paul Pierce was a champion. He still has something to give on the court, and what he said, you had no choice but to look at him and be like, it's Paul Pierce, like this the guy. You know what I'm saying? Even Trevor Ariza, respected veteran, still got something to give on the court. He's a champion.
Yeah.
Like, who's going to look at him and be like, you don't know what you're talking about? So I think every team needs that. Like, that helps you get over the hump when you have that type of personality in the locker room. And I think they really needed it. That team really needed it. Now they're too far gone where it doesn't matter what they have in the locker room. And now they need a retool of some sort, whether it's a blow up, a soft rebuild, a reshuffling of some of the major pieces. I don't know. They need something. They can't keep going forward with the status quo. And I think this this injury, him being able to get this foot fixed, because apparently it's been bothering him for a while, and it was messing with his Achilles tendon. I think getting it fixed now and sitting out, hopefully he comes back next year in much better shape, pain-free, and, his game will show up. Because obviously when you saw him play this year, you knew something wasn't right with him. Like, you just knew something wasn't right with him. And the team went as John went. When he played hard, they played hard. When he didn't play hard, they didn't play hard.
So who are some of your favorite all-time like Wizards / Bullet players, whether fans, players you watched as a teenager or as a young adult? Like, who are some of the ones that you go back to that give you some of the best memories of being a fan of that team?
Of course, I love the Chris Webber, Juwan Howard brief era. I was a big Rod Strickland fan. I loved when Walt Williams came and played in DC. I go all the way back to like Liddell Eccles, Tracy Murray, Michael Adams. I remember all of that. But some of my favorite memories were definitely the Chris Webber, Juwan Howard era. And then when they traded Chris Webber, I definitely enjoyed watching Rod Strickland play, even though he was on the back end of his career. And then Bernard King, even though he was on the back end of his career, I enjoyed watching him play as well.
See, Chris Webber's a funny one because when he came to Sacramento, him and Jason Williams started that explosion that made that team so much fun. And obviously for the past like decade and a half, we've fallen on some tough times. But I know you had a tweet about it the other day. You're talking about how much fun this Sacramento Kings team is now, but there's just sort of that distrust in management. And I'd let you know, like, being in Sacramento, like, this team is fun again, but there is sort of like that eerie feel around them to where we're just kind of waiting on like Vlade and Vivek to come in and like just find a way to mess it up somehow. But what do you get out of watching the Sacramento Kings play when you watch them periodically?
I enjoy. I mean, they play with a lot of energy. You definitely can tell they're young. Some of the mistakes they make, but they play with energy. They play with tempo. They play with pace. They have nice pieces. Like, I like De'Aaron Fox. I like Buddy Hield. I love Bogdanovich. I can't pronounce his name, but I love him. I like some of their bigs. I like. I'm very interested to see what some development with Harry Giles can turn into. Of course, Marvin Bagley. I like Willie Cauley-Stein still. The addition of Bielitsa has helped them out. I think they're missing a small forward. we got Otto Porter available.
You know what's funny? We were trying to go after him in the offseason too. Like I remember me and my buddy were talking about it. Like they're because we felt like we had the money to overpay somebody, and I'm like, they're gonna overpay Otto Porter. And then we were just talking about it last week. They're like, well, we could just get Otto Porter now for a trade for something. We can get rid of some of these expiring deals.
Yeah, come get him. I think he'll work there because he's a player that doesn't need the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to do the little things. He's going to play the defense. He's going to hit the open three. He's going to cut, to the basket hard. And you don't have to give him the ball 10, 15 times a game. And I think he'll work perfectly there. But yeah, I love the way they're coached. And like I said, it just feels like just all of the moves that Vlade and Vivek have made thus far, it's almost like they lucked into this team they have now, and they're just looking for a way. They're itching for a way to mess up what they have instead of just letting it roll. And you're just waiting. The trade deadline is going to be the first. Okay, can they make it past the trade deadline without messing up? But for right now though, I love watching them play, man. I have the league pass, and my team I don't enjoy watching that much, so I had to find other teams that I wanted to watch play, and Sacramento just ends up being one of them teams that when I see they're on, especially depending on who they playing, like yo, I want to see that game. I got to see that game. I just love watching them play. They're becoming my second favorite team in the NBA.
Man, that feels good. As someone who I kind of knew that the tide was turning for us because I work in Concord, which is like an hour and a half away from Sacramento. It's closer to Oakland than Sacramento. And I was wearing a Sacramento Kings sweater the other day around town. Someone was like, "Oh man, are you like a bandwagon fan of that team now?" And when people start thinking that the Kings, they see Kings purple, and they think the fans are bandwagons. Like, oh, we're starting to slowly come back to prominence now. It felt kind of good in a weird way.
Yeah, man. I think as long as Vlade and Vivek stay out the way, or not try to do too much, I think, like I said, I think they're starting to make a way. Definitely keep that coach.
Yes, please.
That's step one. Don't end up firing a coach that's working, midway through the season because you don't like something he said or did. So
absolutely not.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about this. I don't know if you've seen this article I read in Bleacher Report about a month or so ago about the Washington G League team, the Capital City Go-Go. Are you familiar with the article?
No, not the article. I mean the team, yes, but not the article.
So there was something in the article that talked about sort of the go-go sound. And I said in the email where I wanted to go over some things with you, I'm not terribly familiar with what that sort of go-go sound is. Or, I grew up in California. From what I've read in the article that was written on Bleacher Report, there's sort of a divide between certain fans of it that feel like it's cultural appropriation, and then they feel like it's a sound that was sort of drubbed out by an establishment, and now it's being kind of brought to the mainstream by an establishment that never really liked the sound to begin with. Can you do you have any familiarity as far as like what that sound is, or can you let people know?
Oh yeah. Nah, I got you now. I saw the article now. I didn't read it, but I saw the article.
Okay.
Go-Go is definitely a Washington D.C. based sound. Is live instrumentation. It's bass. With bass drums, keyboard, sometimes horn section, and then it's the key in it is they have congos or bongos. And it's very rhythmic, and it's definitely a regional sound, and it's definitely been, slowly getting, wiped out just like with any city in these days, gentrification.
Yes.
And so, all of the places that these go-go bands used to play are disappearing. And so when the team, and I think the team, when they got this G League team and where the arena is in Southeast DC, and Southeast DC is has always been known as a like the worst part of DC. That's where, a lot of the crime took place at and things of that nature. And so they have this arena there, and I think they just wanted to do something to, kind of represent the area.
Hmm.
And they named the team the Go Go, and you know, it's one of them things where I definitely understand people being upset about the fact that they were wiping, this regional sound away with gentrification, and now you know, the team now sports this name. But it's like this is this is the time to now educate people on that sound because it was a regional thing. Like it wasn't like a lot of people know what it is, but they're really not familiar with what it is. So it's like now it's time to really educate people on what this music is and what this music represents. And this could be a resurgence of that music, in a way. And it's just one of them things. I'm pretty sure a lot of people, not just with go-go, but just with nicknames in general, people are always going to take offense to certain nicknames, especially if it's borrowing from something in the city that people feel that have been, ignored for so long, and now you want to use it you know, to put on your team, in some way. And I really think it was a thing of just honoring Chuck Brown, who passed away a few years ago, and he was a legend in the area, and he's considered the godfather of go-go music. And I felt it was a way of honoring him, honoring the music that represented the sound of the area that they put the arena in. And I really think it was all those things went into play because at the end of the day, if you have a bunch of transplants who have no idea what go-go music is, you wouldn't necessarily need to name the team that. You could have named it something else.
Hmm.
And them people would have known no different. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it's a thing where now you just take the time to really educate people on on the sound of the music and what the music is and the history of the music, and I think people will be willing to listen because now they're intrigued by this name.
Yeah, and it's interesting for me because, like I said, I grew up in California, and honestly, the first time I had heard about this go-go sound was the article on Bleacher Report. So that was my introduction to it. And so just to kind of be able to understand that this wasn't something that I'd ever heard of before, I had a curiosity to learn more about it before, I knew much, before I allowed myself to form an opinion on it. So just getting, your perspective and getting the perspectives of others, it sounds like it's been something to where it's a good tribute to a sound that really wasn't heard of, especially in California where I was from. So if nothing else, it does sound like it's a good tribute to an era and a sound that made Washington D.C. special.
Definitely, definitely. Then that sound definitely made DC special, and because outside of the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, you start stretching north, it dissipates. Nobody cares about it outside of once you get towards Philly. Coming down south, nobody cares about it once you get into North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? Nobody care about it once you go west into West Virginia. So it's like it's one of them things where it definitely was a very concentrated sound, and a lot of people are now kind of starting to do like, what's this go-go? What is this music? And now is the time to really for a resurgence because now you have these people like yourself who's way out in Sacramento and people in other parts of the country trying to figure out what the big deal is, and now is the time to really let them know what this is and introduce them to go-go music.
Cool, man. So I know you were talking last night about that Notre Dame game. What were some of your thoughts watching the two college football bowl games last night? What were your biggest takeaways?
Huh. My biggest takeaway was one, I knew Oklahoma was going to do. I mean, I knew Alabama was going to do what they did to Oklahoma. Everybody knew that. Oklahoma couldn't stop a runny nose. The Notre Dame game, I was surprised, and I was surprised from the simple fact of just watching the game. Obviously it's a 27-point loss, so that's big. But when you actually watch the game, you would look and you'd be like, okay, it was about 4 plays that really made the game. And other than that, it wasn't just like, oh my God, like Clemson it was a barn, they just barn burner from start to beginning. Like, nah, it was a very tight game up until towards the end of that second quarter when they got them 2 bomb TDs.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at how they got them 2 bomb TDs, they were on a cornerback who wasn't even really supposed to be playing that much. And then that's when you realize, oh man, one of the top corners in the country hasn't been in the game since the first quarter. So that changed the whole defensive secondary, how they schemed. The big thing for me was Notre Dame has only allowed 1 pass over 20 yards for a score all season long. They gave up 3 in 1 quarter.
Yep.
And that quarter happened to be the quarter where their top corner, who's one of the top corners in the country, wasn't playing. So 2 ends up on the replacement, and then 1 is on the safety who's playing out of position, trying to cover for the corner because they're trying to cover for the corner that's been burnt twice already. So it's just like, what can you do? You know, the offense didn't play well. They chose the most important game of the season to have their worst game of the season. And so I don't think they were severely outmatched like in 2012 when they were severely outmatched going up against Alabama. Like they had no chance in hell. So I don't think it was that from a talent standpoint this go around. I just think it was a whole bunch of circumstances ended up not going their way, and then they end up having the worst game of the year at the last game. But I mean, this is what happens. You know, I know people. I was reading today, and I know people. You know, oh man, Georgia would have been a better game. Ohio State would have been a better game, and it's like maybe, but the fact of the matter is this: in college football, the regular season matters.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to say, I just want to have the 4 best teams, then why does the regular season matter? We shouldn't even have a regular season. You shouldn't be able to lose 2 games and still make the top 4 college playoff. Like, that's pointless. Mm-hmm. Yeah, on paper, it may have been a better game, but you lost 2 games. You don't deserve to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing people, you know, because people want to see, you know, great games, it's not going to always be great games. But I know people want to see these great games, but it's like you can't discount what happens in the regular season just because you want to see a good game. Like, it doesn't work that way. That's not fair. That's not just. Georgia had ample opportunity to be there. Mm-hmm. They got goose egg by LSU during the regular season. Nobody told them to go get goose egg. And then they gave up a 15-point lead in the 4th quarter to Alabama in the SEC championship.
To their backup quarterback, too.
To their backup quarterback. You had your shot to be there. Mm-hmm. You messed that up. Ohio State, you went and got dragged by an unranked Purdue team. Yeah, you messed that up. Like, yeah. You can't fault Notre Dame for going undefeated and then just having a very bad game on the biggest stage and be like, they didn't deserve to be there. Yes, they did deserve to be there.
Well, I think you can do that. I think because it's a 4-team playoff, which I'm actually a fan of, because I like the fact that you're going to get the 4 best teams and you're going to find out who the best team in college football is. Like, I think if you make it a 4-team playoff, there's always going to be the 5th team. If you make it an 8-team playoff, there's always going to be that 9th team that thinks they deserve to get in. And like, you're picking the top 4 schools, and like it or not, Notre Dame, they did beat Michigan, who ended up at 7 overall. And Notre Dame played who they played. It wasn't as if they were just playing scrubs. Like, Syracuse was a solid team, and they went into Yankee Stadium and they demolished Syracuse. So Notre Dame did play well. I think it's sometimes you just lose. Like, it's sometimes you have a bad game in the biggest game on the national stage. But I think, had that been flipped, there could be, 100 Ohio State fans that could be like, oh, we deserve to be there because we won this, this, and this. And then if they got beat up the way that Notre Dame did yesterday, there could be Notre Dame fans being like, well, we deserve to be there too. And
exactly. The game is played on the field.
Yeah.
And on Georgia's show, on any given day, you could go out there and have your worst game and you get goose egg.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it would have mattered who played yesterday. At the end of the day, Clemson and Alabama is just far more superior than any other team out there. Like it's been said all season.
Yeah.
What did people expect? Like they're just so much better than most teams. I mean, you're talking about the top two recruiting classes for the last couple of years in college football. Mm-hmm. What did you expect?
Yeah, that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, you're not getting all these blue chip recruits to go out here and have tight games against teams who not getting them. So, people gonna complain. They go, like you said, if it's 4 teams, they're gonna complain about the 5th and 6th. If it's 8, they're gonna complain about the 9th and 10th, and it doesn't matter. And just know, there's no way on God's green earth that you will ever have a 2-loss team getting into a college playoff of 4 teams over a no-loss Notre Dame team. Mm-hmm. Ever. Or any team in the Power 5. If they haven't lost a game and you lost 2, you will not get in the playoff over that team in the Power 5 of Notre Dame. It's just not happening. Mm-hmm. So people can cry all they want. Tell your team don't lose in the regular season, and you ain't got to worry about if Notre Dame gonna bump them out or not. like it's simple because at the end of the day, if Georgia would have at least beat Alabama, Notre Dame still would have been in the playoff. Oklahoma wouldn't have made it into the playoff. Mm-hmm. That would have been the difference. Yeah, and Notre Dame would have got drugged by Alabama. So they were gonna get drugged by somebody. Mm-hmm. It was just who.
And, it's funny. Those last two, the Big 12 and the SEC championship game, were so pivotal because that was, the game where, a lot of people say Kyler Murray won the Heisman over Tua because Tua didn't have, Tua got hurt, he didn't have the best game, and that was one of the bigger memories. I think the same could be said for the voting committee. Like they watched Oklahoma win, they watched Georgia lose. So when they had to make that choice to see which team goes and which one doesn't, like it's going to be real hard to put in a Georgia team that you just saw lose to Alabama, lost to got shut out against LSU, put them in over an Oklahoma team that just soundly beat Texas in that Big 12 title game
and won the title and won the conference championship. So it's just like, look, man, this the way it is. This is the way it's set up. That's why it's a playoff. Okay, you didn't like them 2 games, fine. You still getting who you wanted in the championship, Alabama and Clemson. Absolutely. Like. It is what it is. It was just an extra game. Why are you crying? Like, why are you complaining? So, who's to say if Georgia would have made it back in that they wouldn't have got dragged this time around? Like, we seen it happen. Mm-hmm. We seen them lose 22-0, 23-0 already. So, people just like to complain. And, of course, I mean, Notre Dame's my team and all, and they definitely were a flawed team. But, people hate Notre Dame. They have since forever, and that's how I feel about the Cowboys. So I get it, and it's just one of them things where even if it isn't Notre Dame, you just can't put a 2-loss team in over teams that's more deserving. Like that's just not going to work. It's never going to work. So
yeah, I want to transition a little bit off sports back into music mix. I want to wrap this up here because we got this game coming up.
Yeah, it's about to be kickoff.
Yeah. I liked RPM a lot, man. It was probably one of my favorite albums I've been listening to lately. My favorite song on that is City of Ink. But what was something that you tried to do with this album that was either a change for you, or what can people expect listening to it?
For me, I really took my time with this project. I really tried to take my time and, execute at a high level. It had went a little while. Like, that's why I took the time off and I hadn't done anything in a few years. It's because I was getting to the point where I was able to go through the motions and it still be quality, but it wasn't my best. Mm-hmm. And it was just me going through the motions of making music just because that's what I was used to doing. So just having that time off and then approaching it fresh and actually having focus produce me, not just the music, but produce me. It really made me concentrate and focus in on what I was doing. And I think my writing shows that, the concept shows that, the song structure shows that, and we were able to make a powerful, impactful, to the point uh, piece of music that people going to be able to put on, listen to, go through it. It's a quick listen. I don't drag it out. It's a quick listen. You're ready to get through it and then come right back to it to catch them little things that you may have missed the first 1-2 times around. So I think people will really enjoy it. It's no filler here. It's all this steak and potato music right here. So I think people will definitely really enjoy it if they once they put their ears to it.
Yeah, I really did enjoy it, man. Like I said, City Ink's one of my favorite ones. The track you did with Sean Don was a lot of fun too. I want to go back a little bit before the album came out. I know as a fan, and we talked about this before we started recording. I've been a fan of LB since the listening. To have you and Tay back on the stage at the Art of Cool Festival, man. Like I know as a fan how much that meant for me. What was that like for you guys getting back together for Art of Cool this year? How was that for you?
It was crazy, man. It was a whirlwind. It came out of nowhere. It was a thing that just happened. Like it wasn't, something we had planned. It all came together within the matter of a couple hours, and just that feeling of being on stage with my brother again after 8 years, man. It was like a rush that I can't even really describe or put into words. Just being able to go on stage and all of the nerves and everything, they kind of washed away once we got going, and then it like you fall back into your routine. So it's like, okay, yeah, I remember right here we used to do this like this and do that like that, and it was just real cool, man. Just to have that moment, and not only to have that moment, but to have that moment where we had it, and that's where it all started at. So
Durham.
Yeah, in Durham at the Durham Bull Stadium. One of our most iconic photos is taken in front of that stadium after it was built. I think it was after the first year it opened, or the first year it was opening. And we took that photo then, and to be able to actually rock in that stadium, 8 years after not being on stage together was, like I said, it's hard to put into words what that feeling was.
I can tell you as a fan who, grew up as a young adult to someone in his mid-30s now, like how special your guys' music has been since the listening to RPM, man. I've grown with you guys. I've grown with you personally, musically, and just being a part of everything's been a lot of fun. It's been a real joy to see you guys get back on stage and just see, what you guys are doing solo-wise as well. Like it's something to where it's fun to watch the growth from, everything, like I said, from the listening to RPM to Foreign Exchange. Like it's really hard to find music that goes so well into different parts of your life. Like there's some music in my 20s that I love that at 35 I couldn't really go back and listen to, and vice versa. But to still be able to put on everything from the listening to RPM to, like I said, Heart of the City to Sleepers to everything, man. It's to Words Paint Pictures is one of my favorite albums. You and Apollo Brown did a lot of good stuff on that. So
thank you, man. I really appreciate it, and that's something that we always prided ourselves on. And obviously I continue to do that as I created my music by myself, and that's making music that reflected my perspective where I am now today, and that's something that I try to do because we're all growing.
Yeah.
We put out the listening. I was 20, 22, 23 years old. I'm 38 years old now. Like I don't have the same perspective that I had when I was 21, 22 years old when we were making it. So I don't have that same perspective. You know what I'm saying? So I make music reflecting where I am at the moment. And I think that people, genuinely gravitate to that because, we all like to have the moments of escapism, but in reality, we like to know that, it's going to be okay. And I think that's what our music does. It lets you know, like, yeah, you're going through something now, but you can come out on the other side of it okay.
So what's next for Pooh in 2019?
Man, 2019, man. We'll see, man. I'm trying to figure it out, man. I know I have a management company, Brothers Grand, and I have a couple of artists and a producer, artist Loot, who signed to Dreamville as J. Cole's label, and Interscope. He's working on new music now, so we're trying to get him ready to go for 2019. Then I have a singer-songwriter, Black Soul. He's featured on RPM. He's actually featured on all my projects since 2011. He just co-wrote a song on Anderson .Paak's latest release, and he did something on Macklemore's latest release, and now we're gearing up for him to put his first project together. I mean, and he's doing some other writing, so we're doing that. And then the producer Praise, he just released the joint project with Torre. All praises due. So we're trying to get him to, put his first project together. So just working on that, man. Just trying to build that out, man, and get them guys going, and then then I'll see what's next for me, man. I got some unreleased music over here. I got half of an unreleased project me and I started over here. I'm trying to figure out, when I want to finish it up. So just figuring it out, man. I'm just enjoying the release of RPM right now. I still want to shoot a couple visuals for it. The holiday season kind of came up on us kind of fast. So, after the holiday season, we're supposed to sit down and figure out a couple visuals for that and then just see where it takes it.
Cool, man. So get you out of here on this, man. Where can people follow you on all the social media? Where can people check out RPM and all your other music?
Once again, man, y'all can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, rapper Big Pooh, all spelled correctly, RAPPERBIGPOOH. And then on Facebook, rapper Big Pooh and the number 1. Y'all can check RPM out on any digital streaming platform, whichever one you listen to, we're on it. And then, of course, y'all can check me out coming this week, actually. I'm bringing back Pooh on Sports podcast. I started in 07, 08, and there's been many starts and stops, and now I'm about to start it back up again. That's why in the beginning when you were talking about your podcast, how you started it by yourself, then added friends, now you back by yourself. Like it rang familiar to me. I started my podcast with my business partner, Big Doe. Then I tried to do it myself, and then I tried to do it with somebody else. Then I tried to do it with somebody else, and now I'm back to doing it by myself. And so now I'm starting it again. Pooh on Sports. You can check that out on anchor.fm/Pooh on Sports, and it should be up on your favorite podcasting platform as well. And come check me out, man. I'm just, I'm gonna give you my sports takes. I'm gonna give it to you raw, and gonna have some guests on there. It's gonna be fun.
Cool, man. So you guys can check out all now 93 episodes of this podcast by searching Gully Blanchard, which is GULLYBLANCHARD. You can follow me on Twitter at Gully Blanchard, which is GULLYBLANCHARD. All podcasts are available at Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Pretty much anywhere you get podcasts is where you can find us. This was a really fun episode. It's been a true honor for me as a fan of LB and your music for a long time, man. So, Pooh, thank you very much for the time for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, guys. So until then, we'll be back next week. You guys be good, and we'll talk to you soon.